Welcome back to Roughing It Up. I'm RJ, Brian, Jimmy, Daniel. Unfortunately, uh, we lost the man, Mr. Mount Rushmore, Hulk Hogan, this past Thursday. Unfortunately, we have to do one of these episodes. It's unfortunate we have to doing a passing of Hulk Hogan, but guys, how you holding up?
Well, as best as we can. I mean, like you said, we lost not only a legend, but the guy who is responsible for bringing wrestling to where it is right now. Because without Hulk Hogan, we don't have what we have today. That's the bottom line. And I know people are out there arguing, well, it could have been this person, it could have been that person. No, it couldn't have been anybody else but Hulk. He
I
was the
agree.
man.
I agree, Jimmy. And I don't know about you guys, but just that opening, I got goosebumps. I did. I really did. My immediate thoughts was him walking down that aisle, pointing, um, just doing the shit only Hogan could do. And like as you said, Jimmy, we lost an icon, is what we lost. We lost an icon and a man who meant everything to the world of wrestling. So it did take me one day when I initially heard it. It was almost like I didn't believe it. And then the next day, I became very, very, very sad. And actually, as you guys know, I was privy to be on Busted Open and actually got really emotional on that. And it was total accidental. Like it wasn't, you know what I mean? I didn't think it was going to happen like that. But it just shows, that the sentimental value of a guy that's so important into the business can mean on an unfortunate passing. So, RIP Hogan, we love you, brother.
Yeah, I it took a couple days. I was working. Basically, we had TNA's live TV and TV tapings the next day after this all happened. So really, and then the drive back took me a little bit to process. It was still emotional, and pulled a couple of the boys aside, and we kind of had a little talk about different things. But really, what got me was this past week, Monday Night Raw, the actual video. I know they did one on Friday night with narrated by Triple H, and that was great. But the one they played last night, or as we record this last night, but this week on Raw, I was in. I just cried. I was in tears. I never met him, but I've seen him. He has entertained me since I was a kid. He is the reason I am in this business. He is the reason I love wrestling from the beginning. He was my first uh, favorite wrestler, and and then as I got older, I started looking at other people. But then, yesterday I wore my Hollywood Rules because Hollywood Hulk Hogan was also like in my teenage years, like transition, and I was like, yeah, I was supposed to hate him, but I loved him because he was so cool, and yeah, it's been a rough few days, man. And I can only imagine how you guys feel, get to work with him and know him, and just everyone that I've come across with. Uh, it's a sad day, and his legacy. We'll talk about on the show throughout the show, but his legacy will live on forever. It's always said Hulkamania will live forever, and it will. But unfortunately, the man that behind that has passed away, and yeah, it's going to be a hard episode to get through, but we'll get through it.
So, Daniel, I have a question for you in just a minute.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
before I do that, I just want to remind everybody that on this episode, you're going to be blessed to with the grace of my father, Mr. Earl Hebner, will join us here in a few, and then later in the show, D'Lo Brown is going to come in. I had a few other people that were going to come in, but we didn't want to make this a long, huge episode. We wanted to make it special for Hogan. And so I just wanted to remind you what you're going to get here on today's show. Daniel, you were on the road when the news came out with Hogan. Is that correct?
I was literally in a production meeting for Live Impact when I got a text message. Text messages were flying in before it was even out yet. And then apparently Lance Storm was getting the same text messages, and we're like, "Is this real?" And then about 10 minutes later, TMZ it hit the interwebs. So, yeah, it was. And
Is
then
there is there a way for you to explain like not only yourself and Lance, but other people in the building in the locker rooms? What was the feeling and what was the like? What did you get feeling
So
wise?
so we were all like saddened and like shocked, even in the production meeting, because we stopped and brought it to everyone's attention because we were like, we probably need to add something on the show now for Hogan because we're doing this live show. We need to add that. And then we kind of like everyone showing up, which is kind of like in awe, and people that I know that are Hogan marks, like me,
Yeah.
we Cody Deaner and guys like that. I just kind of pulled aside. I was like, man, how you feel? He's like, I'm devastated right now today. I just not thinking about it. I'm just thinking about work. I was like, okay, well, all right, same here. I know he impacted your career and your life. So same with me. So it just was a weird like I know this sounds weird, but I was kind of glad that we had work to do because we were focused on work, right?
Yeah.
That's why I didn't really take it all in until the weekend because I've been even though I saw the highlights and the videos and the tribute pictures and everything else, it took a little bit for it to register that, oh gosh, the Immortal Hulk Hogan, the one of the everyone's Mount Rushmore, probably some people call the greatest of all time, has literally is gone now. He's no longer with us. And all week I've been wearing my real American beer hat, literally all week while I was in New York and Rhode Island, like, wearing it, working out or whatever. And I'm like, and here's what's crazy. The day he passed away, I was going to wear a Hogan shirt to TV that day, and I decided not to and wore a TNA shirt instead. I'm kind of glad I didn't because it would have been freaky for me if I wore his
Right.
shirt, you know. But
Jimmy, how did you feel? Like, how was it for you? Because I mean, for me, really quick, Jimmy, I think like Daniel just touched on it. I was at the office and I heard it.
Right.
Of course, I had a moment or two to take it in shock, but uh, I don't think like Daniel said it set in until that night when I was at home by myself on the sofa, reading it, seeing it all on the news, and I think that's when it hit me that evening and then to the next day. So Jimmy, you were blessed just like I was to work with Hogan and
Yeah.
talk to him, sit down with him. So how was it for you, buddy?
It was difficult because the way I found out, I had a friend of mine message me, and he said Hulk passed away, and I'm like, uh, you know how it is. It's like you think, okay, this better not be a bad idea of a rib. That's the first thing. I contacted. I said, "Are you serious? You better be. You know, I didn't want it to be true. Do you know what I mean? I
Yes.
didn't want it to be true, but I was hoping that it was just a bad attempt at a joke. And then, right away I went to look on the internet and stuff like that and see if I could find anything. Finally, I saw that TMZ broke the news, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! I just stopped. Like, do you know what I mean? I just stopped and just started trying to process it, and it wasn't, you know, I and even my wife comes over and goes, "What's wrong?" And she goes, and I told her, and she goes, "No way, it can't be true." Because you know, just like the week before, Jimmy Hart was saying, "Don't worry about Hulk. Hulk's doing all right." So this, yeah.
Jimmy, I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but it's like
No, go ahead.
it's it's shocking. We know everyone has an expiration date. 10 out of 10 people die, right? So we know it's going to happen. But it's like it's the fact that to us he's the immortal Hulk Hogan, like he'll always be
Hmm.
around. It's kind of like Vince McMahon's another one that you know. But it's wild because we just lost an icon in Ozzy Osbourne
Hmm.
the day before or 2 days before, whatever it was. And it's like, what? Like it wasn't expecting, you heard the rumors, but like you said, he was fine, doing well. He's in his home, so he's not in the hospital or whatnot. But
Hmm.
it's like it's almost like it would be less shocking if we knew he was been sick for a while, like
Yeah.
I
like
get it.
Bobby Heenan and people like that who was battling a disease or whatnot that before they
Hmm.
passed, you kind of know it's coming or expecting it. But this was like what, just out of nowhere.
You know what's really ironic too, guys? And this is not to be controversial at all. Obviously, we're not a controversial show. But are you guys aware of, well, you are, Daniel, because you always bring Earl Hebner into this. Um,
He's the greatest.
please stop. This is a serious conversation.
I know.
Um,
I'm just the great.
Trying
Talking
to
about
lighten
the
the
great.
mood.
We're talking about the great that is Hulk Hogan, right? And the great ever
Hmm.
referee. There's Earl. So sorry. He was just
all right. Well, he'll get his episode one day. All right. Cool. Calm down. But no, are you guys familiar with Bubba the Love Sponge? Do you know who he is?
yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Okay. Well, no. All I'm saying is what's really weird is that he was reporting before Hogan's death about him being in a coma, him having some kind of trachea like infection or something to that effect. And he
Mhm.
was saying this the same days that Jimmy Hart was saying, I was out on the with karaoke with Nick, saw Hogan today. He's doing great, baby. And Brutus the Barber Beefcake was saying some good things. So I don't know if it was like the family knew, but out of the privacy, didn't want the boys to go spread it, if that makes sense.
Well, well, the thing about it is that it's hard. If that was the case, then his death reporting would it's cardiac arrest. I mean, granted, you could have that in a coma or whatnot, but everybody was talking that he was fine. So I
Right.
don't. I feel like that it was only one person reporting it, and I feel like that in the world that we live, where I know Hogan's is the old school brother kayfabe area, but in the world today, it's hard to kayfabe anything anymore, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I feel like more people would have had that news and had proof or whatever. Um, so I took that with a grain of salt because of their arch enemies now or whatever,
Right.
arch rivals. So I didn't whatever, and it almost seemed like when he passed away, we didn't know what it was at first, and like maybe Bubba Lunchbunch knew what he was talking about. I was like, oh yeah, but then the more and more got information came out, I was like, no, he still didn't know what he was talking about because it would have been a completely different type of situation,
Right.
passed in a hospital or whatever, not in his home,
Mhm.
and basically when he, I guess, in his sleep or whatnot. So, yeah.
Well, my only thing is I just was hoping that his family could get some Iggy that he wasn't doing well. You know what I mean? He couldn't have been doing well. He couldn't have been. He could have been doing okay, but he couldn't have been doing well. Because don't you guys
Well,
think? Now, I haven't experienced much death. Go ahead, Jimmy. What?
no. It's it. We don't know the whole situation. We know he had the surgery recently on his knee
Yes.
to get that fixed, and there was little issues there. But as far as getting the Iggy, I could speak from my cousin's husband, who's only 62 years old. Nothing wrong with him. He was good. Walking through a Costco one day, he just didn't feel well. Sat down. They took him outside to sit to get some air. Cardiac arrest.
Hmm.
And this was a guy who was one no issues at all. Not on any medication. No previous history of anything. It just got him. I don't know. Nobody can figure out why. So
And he was also running hard with this new endeavor he was
yeah.
doing.
Well, he always
Uh,
ran hard,
yes.
regardless. You know Hulk.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything half-assed. Nothing.
So RJ, why don't we do this? Why don't we get out of this and bring in Earl? I think he's in now. So let's bring him in and let's go from there.
All right, why don't we send it up to our first count right here on Repping It Up.
This is your one count.
Welcome back to Repping It Up here in our first count. I have the honor of welcoming in Hall of Famer, Mr. Earl Hebner. Earl, welcome to the show, man. How are you hanging in there?
I'm hanging this. It's certainly been a sad day and probably a sad week, but uh, everybody's trying to get over it and get through it. But it's been rough.
Yeah, it's one of those things that obviously with Brian and Jimmy working with Hulk is not as much as you, obviously, but it's one of those things you kind of remember those good times, though. I go back and watch a lot of those old matches there from the 80s and 90s. Is there something like this happens? Is there certain things you're doing to kind of just keep your mind positive?
Well, when it first come out, it's something you hear, but you don't believe. I mean, how many times have people, oh, we've heard Flair passed away, this, that, and the other, and you think it's some weirdo just trying to stir up a bunch of crap. And I just didn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it because I know how people are and marks are and all the bullshit that they want to put on and say and do. But finally, after I watched the news and everything, then it's when it really hit me bad. Because I was I was really close to the Hulkster. Believe me, me and my brother. uh, from WWF, WWE to TNA. I mean, we were pals. We were always together, and man, it has really burnt me down
So
bad.
let me ask you this, Daddy. How did you initially hear? Was it a text? Was it news you heard? How did you find out initially?
Uh, I think one of my friends called me, and I said, "No way." I said, "Somebody's stirring up a bunch of crap. You can't believe that." And he goes, "No, no, it's on internet and everything or whatever." And I go, "No, man." I said, "People put out a bunch of crap all the time." I said, "Ric Flair died 10 times from
That's true.
people doing dumb shit like
And,
this."
and Hogan has been dead before. Like I've ever seen that hoax a while back, and he had to tweet out and say, "I'm fine" or whatever. This is like 5 or 6 years
Right,
ago.
right. So I truthfully, I just wouldn't believe it. It wouldn't sink in that this was real. And finally, at the end of the night, it was real. And man, I tell you, I was so shocked, so disappointed, and so hurt about this because, truthfully, like I said, I felt like I was one of Hawk's uh, partners, and which I was. And man, it's hard to explain. It really is. You lost somebody that great, and what do you say?
I know.
You still can't believe it, even though it's true. You don't want to believe it.
You
Right.
you know what was funny is on the last Monday after Slammiversary, I went sightseeing in New York City with my girlfriend, and we went and did a bunch of like stuff and saw a bunch of memorabilia, and there was like a store that had some cool stuff, a lot of cool Hogan stuff, and I was like chomping at the bit, going, man, I have so many memorabilia, Hogan things and toys and whatever, and I almost bought something. I was like, but then I thought about,
No,
that's
you
gonna
bought
pack.
it. You have it. You have it now. It's the Earl Hebner doll.
No, I've already had that, pal.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
No, there was and I was like, well, then I thought of myself, the packing of it and trying to, carry it for a week or whatever. I was like, I looked online, I can get it online. I was like, I'll just order it later. And then now I wish I kind of would have bought it, just because of the simple fact that, hindsight's 2020, right? But it's just wild because again, every time I see Hogan stuff, I go right to it and start looking and wanting to buy it and wanting to, because it's just Hogan's Hogan. He's it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
those things that anybody, male, female, whomever, from pretty much my age, I'm 41, so from basically 40 to I'd say at least 55, grew up either watching them, working with them, and it's one of those things you guys know. My Gavin's a huge wrestling fan, and he's sitting there watching the marathon they had for Hulk on YouTube there, and he brings out his Hulk doll, and he's like, "Oh, I guess we can't get rid of this now." I said, "No, bud." I'm like, "We were going to get rid of it anyways." Um, but it's a guy that first wrestler that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He transcended pop and rock and roll connection or rock and wrestling connection. But man, it's just like you said, it just takes you a couple of days to kind of just take it all in, Jimmy.
No, no, he did because he was the guy who, like you said, transcended wrestling. Because it wasn't cool for a long time to be a wrestling fan, but Hulk made it cool again because he appealed to so many platforms. I mean, look at how many celebrities and professional athletes were wrestling fans because of Hulk. They were wrestling fans before Hulk, but because of Hulk, they weren't afraid to show it anymore, and they would show up to the events, and they weren't afraid, and they all wanted to meet Hulk.
Yeah.
Every one of those guys, from the Michael Jordans to Muhammad Ali to you pick them, the elite of the elite of every sport wanted to meet Hulk Hogan. And
Right.
even if you weren't a wrestling fan, you ask 100 people who were not wrestling fans to name one wrestler, 99% of them will say Hulk Hogan.
Hmm.
the
I
he
agree.
was he was the person that still to this day that probably if you name a wrestler, I mean the only I mean, yes, you had Austin Rock, and Rock's done his own thing, but some people still don't know The Rock as a wrestler. They know him as an actor. But if you
Mhm.
look at like name a wrestler, well, known the two people they're going to name, and this is crazy. They're going to name Hulk Hogan, and then now they're going to name John Cena. They're not even going to name Austin as much, Rock, Triple
Undertaker.
H, Undertaker. They're not going to name these people, although just in the general mainstream people that are not wrestling fans. It's going to start with Hogan and it's going to end with Cena because those are the two. So really, truthfully, I mean, you have Hogan. Yes, you went into the era with Austin and Rock or whatever, but as far as like transcending and being someone that like more people know outside of wrestling, no one's done it since
Mhm.
Cena was the only one that's done it since Hogan, and both of them, by the way, had the two biggest heel turns of all time. So,
Hmm.
because of who they are, like when Austin turned heel at WrestleMania 17, it wasn't impactful as the other two turning heels.
Right.
So, it's something to be said about Hogan.
Here's
Um,
something.
Yeah.
Well, here's something else I thought about too, Daniel. This is going to be a question for Daddy. So you go from working in the Crockett Cup or Crockett promotion. Sorry, you did work at Crockett Cup, but anyway, and you were dealing with the likes of like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and you transitioned from the NWA to the WWE, WWF at the time, and your first match in the company is working with Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So I am sure that you ran into Hogan before you actually worked with him, or am I wrong?
wrong. Never met him till that I went up there.
Okay, so that's awesome answer. I'm glad you said that. All right, so as a grown ass man, how did you feel going to the big leagues, right, and meeting this icon, Hulk Hogan, for your first match? I mean, there couldn't be any more pressure than saying, "Okay, welcome to the WWE. You're going to referee Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant." Can you explain how it felt to meet him for the first time and how it went?
Well, truthfully, I was on pins and needles, and I sit there and I looked and I stared, and I just said, "This can't be real. This can't be for me."
He was larger than life, right?
Yeah, and I'm going, God knows. I mean, it would. It's like the news you hear. You hear it and you don't believe it. And here I am standing beside a great guy, the greatest guy ever in this business, and I'm going to referee his match for the first time in my life, and I'm going, oh my God. And Andre, I knew Andre before I met Andre way years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but and I'm going, man, it's unreal. And then believe me, as much as experience as I've had, I didn't have that experience dealing with him. I had to learn it hour by hour of what he wanted and everything. And I was so psyched up, hell, half of it I couldn't remember because I was hypnotized.
So was
Well,
David
Brian.
just as nervous? I
Huh?
mean, David had been there, obviously, so he
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
intimidated by Hogan or Andre. But I mean,
Oh, no.
was he nervous about doing anything at all?
No. No.
That's crazy.
He was just himself because, hell, he'd been around Hogan all those years,
Mhm.
and it was just like me being around Flair down at the NWA.
Right.
But when I came face to face with Hogan, I'm going, oh my God, is this for real? Is it really for me? What am I? Man, I'm telling you,
Earl,
it's like it's like Brian, your mama having you. I'm going, oh my God, I'm stuck with this.
Well, I'm not quite the icon, but that's okay.
Yeah,
You are though. I just ask Daniel. Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, like you guys said, he
Yes.
came from the NWA, and you worked with some greats like Ric Flair, like Dusty Rhodes. You know,
Wahoo!
um, Wahoo! Oh my goodness, Wahoo! I love Wahoo. We got to remember when they used to come up to Toronto here because
The
here
Four
in Toronto
Horsemen.
before WWF took over the territory, we used to get our talent from Mid Atlantic Wrestling up here, and so when I was going to Maple Leaf Gardens to watch, that's who it was. But those guys are also legends and icons in their own right. But can you explain the difference or what the difference was when you were in the ring absorbing that audience when Hulk was in there as opposed to someone like a Dusty, someone like a Rick, someone like a Wahoo?
Well, Jimmy, when I walked into that ring and looked around, I've never seen that many people in my life. And all the times I've been at house shows and TVs, never saw that many people in my life. And brother, I was thinking, oh my God.
Hmm.
And I'm looking around like, yeah, and I'm going, I can't believe this. But I don't think they'd be cheering me on the way back as they did coming in. But
That's
anyway, and I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, man, I could get killed here.
I mean, what you're describing, Daddy, to me is this, and you can correct me. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Actually, I heard you do an interview talking, and I think you alluded to this, but wouldn't you say that the energy level was different than, yes, it was great when Flair came out with a nice pop, Dusty came out, but the Hogan energy and pop was just a different type of feel?
Yes, yes, a whole different atmosphere. Believe me, it was uh, it was something that started and wouldn't stop.
Right.
They were crazy. Over with Hogan, and then I don't think, truthfully, Flair, uh, Stone Cold, Taker, they get a great pop, but it's not the same pop as Hulk Hogan.
Right.
It just doesn't fit.
Right. Now, I know this is supposed to be about Hulk, but I got to ask about you. Where were they hiding you all day? Because I was there that day and I didn't see you.
I was in Vince's office eating hog the hog. Everything thrown in, I'd eat it, brother. Best meal I ever had.
So that was probably about like
Definitely
eight.
wasn't
That was probably
catering.
88.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
That-
Okay.
Yeah. Because I remember we were watching the match on the monitor and looking at the monitor, and I turned because I wanted to get a coffee at the coffee stand right by the monitor. So I'm fixing myself a coffee, and I look down, and then I look behind me, and I see David there. And I'm like, I'm not confused. I'm not putting two and two together yet. You know what I mean? I'm like, what 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 is going on here? And then he looks at me and he puts his finger up, goes, shh. And I went, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to wait for it.
Jimmy,
Jimmy,
you
did,
never
did
knew what was going on. Even your matches, you didn't know what the hell was going on. So what would you know now?
Well, I did know what I wanted in my coffee. That was about it.
Jimmy, I'm ribbing you.
Yeah.
it's also funny. Once again, I know it's about Hulk Hogan, but we also want to have fun too. I remember when Jimmy, you said this too, and it's so funny because I thought the same thing. So I don't know if you remember this or not, Daddy, that you called me and told me that you wanted me to watch Saturday Night Main Event, and I was very curious as to why you wanted me to do that because you were in the NWA. I thought at that point in time, and I'm like, okay, and I watched wrestling anyway. Jimmy, you said this too.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm watching it, I'm going, damn, David's lost some weight.
Yes.
Never thinking it was my dad, right?
Right.
And I know my dad. I know I could. A lot of people couldn't tell them side by side at all. Now I've walked up behind my Uncle David before and said, "Daddy, Daddy," and he turned around and say, "I ain't your fucking daddy," you know. but I just was watching it intensely, and I'm like, God, David's lost so much weight.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, and Jimmy, you mentioned it too. And I realized halfway through that match, I did. I don't care what anybody thinks. I was like, that's my dad. That is my dad. But I couldn't tell anybody because nobody would believe me because I didn't know it to be factual. You know what I mean? Remember, Jimmy, you said the same thing. You noticed you were watching on the monitor. You're like, David's looking pretty good right now.
That's exactly what I said. I said, David's looking pretty good right now. Not bad, not bad. I hadn't seen him like in about 2 weeks or so. So I figured, man, some crash coursing. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing some cardio. He's doing the treadmill. I don't know what it was. Then I turn around and I see him in the corner there hiding in the shadows. And I was like, what the hey?
Hey, Jimmy,
Yeah.
one of these deals. Huh? What?
Head scratcher.
Exactly.
So my so did y'all keep it a secret other than, I mean, obviously Brian knew, but
No, I
did,
didn't.
no,
I
I
didn't.
meant not this. I meant this. Do you?
Oh.
I'll get to it. You kept it a secret. You and Dave both that you were twin. You had a twin. You were twins. Like no one knew.
Well, a lot of people knew, but nobody knew this. I mean, this is the most kayfabe deal that probably will
Well,
ever
yeah.
in the world of this business.
I mean, it was. I mean, back then it was really. It was a lot easier to kayfabe stuff too, because it's than it is today. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely probably only a handful of people knew then, right?
Yeah, but the funny thing is when I got there, they told me go straight to Vince's office. I said okay. So I'm walking in, and the guy was going, "Hey Dave, hey guys, how y'all doing? Hey, yeah, hello, hello, or whatever. Like never sold nothing. Just go, hey guys, how y'all doing?" And I just kept going, and once I got in, that was it. I stayed there the whole day till time to go.
Here's what I
The
find really ironic, David. David, sorry, uh, Daniel. Here's what I find really ironic. So think about this: you have Dave Hebner, the main event referee on WWF. You have Earl Hebner, who's one of the main event referees in NWA because it was him and Tommy. They split the duties, um, and no one picked that up because the stories I've been told, which I can't say they're true, but they have to be, was that someone needed someone to look close to Dave to pull this off. And someone said, "What about Dave's brother? It's his twin brother." Vince had no clue David had a twin brother. So, how in the world does this not get picked up that he's got a twin brother after all these years of two guys main eventing in two different companies that are competitive against each other? Does this not get figured
Well,
out prior? You know what I mean?
But remember, the stories were true about Vince probably at that time compared to even 20, 30 years later. He didn't watch the other product. He had no idea. Other people would have to tell him. So I don't think he watched. I mean, maybe he watched more of the NWA, back in the 80s than he did going, obviously then later became WCW, but I don't think he really watched the product. So I can see him not knowing, or not putting two together. But it's just odd that no one else did.
It is ironic, very. And it's I would say this. I would say that Vince probably paid more attention to the NWA than he did WCW because NWA was a lot better to watch than WCW.
Well, yeah.
well,
He was scouting
the
talent. He
well
was
that too.
scouting talent.
Uh, between
Watch the AWA more than NWA though.
Mm-hmm.
right. The maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of matches you possibly had with Hulk, Earl, between, like I said, here in '88 all the way up through Attitude Era to, or not Attitude Era, but through the Golden Age era there to TNA to coming back, all that stuff. It, some of those memories, some of your favorite matches, those moments that you had with Hulk, whether it be in the ring, out of the ring, that you can share.
Yeah. Well, when WWF was running double shows on weekends,
Mm-hmm.
on, double shots or whatever you want to call it. Uh, Hogan said, "I talked to Vince, and you're going to go with me on you're going to be my referees for both places." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." So we we start out. We'd have Hogan's match just before intermission, and then we'd have intermission. We'd go back, shower, get dressed, and go to the airport. And here I am riding in a limo to the airport, getting on a Learjet, loaded with food, loaded with everything. And I'm going, boy, this is a life here. And who in the hell would ever thought it would be me? But ever since we did the Hulk Hogan deal, Dave and I mean, God knows, he just loved both of us to death. I mean, he took good care of us. He said, if you ever have any problems with anybody, come see me.
Now you said it was loaded with food and everything. What's everything? Can you elaborate on everything?
No, I can't elaborate on everything.
You don't know who's watching. You don't know who's watching.
There's plenty of alcohol on there. Put it that way.
So, Daddy, here's what we want you to do. Go, Jimmy, real quick. I'm sorry.
No, real quick, because Earl said something that I found interesting because, you said that Hulk told you if you need anything to come to him. The first time I ever met him, I went to pick him up at the airport. Jack Tunney sent me up to the airport with remember that big ass blue Fleetwood Cadillac he had? Sent me up to the airport Marriott to pick up Hulk, and I didn't know when I walked in how to address him. I mean, like, did I call him Mr. Hogan, Mr. Hulk? I didn't know what to say, and so I just said, hello, sir. My name is Jimmy. Jack Tunney sent me to pick you up and take you down to the Maple Leaf Gardens. He says, all right, brother, let's go. And on the way down, he had like a conversation with me, and not about wrestling. He just asking me questions about me and stuff like that. When we got to the building, I parked the car, I lead him out, I take him into the building. Everything's all right. He says, thanks for the ride, brother. He says, you ever need anything, you come to me. And that was the first time I met him. I just some kid who actually had hair, that big puffy thing on the top of my head, and that sat with me like for a long time, thinking this is probably the biggest superstar in professional wrestling right now, saying if I need anything to go to him. Not that I ever would, unless I needed a new car. I mean, I don't know, but I just found that incredible that he would say that.